Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. It's looking increasingly likely that a fight between Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora is going to land on October the 26th in the UK at the O2 in London. And actually that's good news, because when you actually look at the calendar, there's not a lot of fights that have actually been confirmed and firmed up. There's a number of guys that we know are going to be fighting at some point in the heavyweight division. You know, you think Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder, that rematch. Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr., that rematch. There's not a lot of other names, bar that are actually locked into fights. You have Alexander Povetkin taking on Hughie Fury later in August. But apart from that, the actual cupboard is bare in terms of made fights. So if we can get another one in the next couple of weeks to look forward to later in the year, that's going to be good. And Chisora and Parker, I wouldn't say it's a 50-50. For some people, they might see it that way, but I think this is more a 60-40 in terms of Joseph Parker in his favour. But that is a good scrap, because Joseph Parker, former world champion, 2 losses on the bounce in 2018. He's been rebuilding. He's kind of had a couple of really obscure fights. Alexander Flores as a confidence builder in late 2018. Then a late notice fight against Alex Leopai at the end of June. But there hasn't been much to write home about in the last year since his last loss against Dillian Whyte. So facing a guy stepping up to the level of a Derek Chisora, who's about top 20 level, sort of on the bubble, there or thereabouts. He's a guy that is, if you're not good enough, he will certainly make you pay. And Artis Bilka found that out the hard way, knocked out recently, and Carlos Takam also knocked out in 2018. And it's those couple of wins that have really kept Chisora sort of in the mix in the heavyweight division. Not necessarily for a title fight, because he really hasn't beaten the names to sort of get to that level. But he's still in meaningful fights where he can get paid well, and fights that can progress his career. And at 35, he feels like he's been around forever and a day, and he's got about 40 fights on his resume now, and Joseph Parker looks to be the next one. So David Higgins, talking to Sky Sports about Joseph Parker and him being impressed with Derek Chisora's recent win over Spilka, he said he was impressed, but he won't shy away. He won't take a backward step. Chisora looked good, and Joseph's message was, make the fight, make it happen. The date is absolutely plausible, provided everyone moves quick. I'm sure that Joseph Parker would absolutely be happy with that scenario. We're ready and willing, we just need to get this formalized quick. And I'll just interject there. This was an interview when I was reading through the story that I thought, actually, this does look like it is going to be made, because you didn't hear David Higgins saying if the terms are right, which was often a catch cry of his when he was promoting Joseph Parker. But the message is clear, make the fight. And he's saying move quick. And that's a sort of cautionary tale, because this fight between Parker and Chisora was originally slated to be in April. But Parker and his team pulled out. They said, look, you didn't give us the contract. We gave you a deadline. Deadline passed, never got a contract to sign, so the fight fell through. They wanted an adequate amount of time to train. They thought that Derek Chisora was cribbing an advantage in training camp. And actually Dave Coldwell, even though David Hay had sort of deflected on that and said it wasn't actually happening, at the time Dave Coldwell had said they'd been in camp for about 3 weeks. So if they get this fight made, in the next couple of weeks, they'll still have roughly about 10 weeks or so until fight night. So that should be plenty. Last time they said, look, bare minimum 8-week camp. So we'll have to see where this goes in terms of what amount of time. But Parker, if he knows this is going to be happening coming down the pipe, there's no reason that he can't actually be, having a bit of a pre-camp anyway, getting himself ready to get into, the full swing of a full training camp for his fight. But Higgins, he also says if Derek shows up, lands a big bomb, he could win the fight. But if Joseph fights the way we know he can at his best, he'll win the fight. It's one of those fights that could go either way. Among 2 household names now, it will be exciting and explosive. Those David Higgins statements to Sky Sports. And this actually could be a very good fight for the fans. Derek Chisora, on his night, he can be very exciting. He has rolled back the clock in terms of a couple of performances of late where he's looked really good. Whereas a couple of years ago against Ajit Cabello and some other fights you may recall, it sort of seemed like he either just didn't want to be there or just, it just really didn't go his way and he didn't sort of put the foot down, couldn't get into the fight. Now he is in a new setup with David Haye managing / promoting him, but also you have a change of trainer. And with more of a sort of length of time now passing since he moved to Dave Coldwell, that's actually going to be good for him. So I think the more influence Coldwell has over the months, that is going to sort of rub off on in terms of his strategy and little things that Coldwell can fix. Obviously, Derek Chisora is pretty much what he is at this point in his career, but if Coldwell can make little adjustments, that could result in good results in the ring. So this here is very important for Joseph Parker in terms of the what next, sort of the springboard onto a big fight. In its own right, it's a pretty decent fight within the heavyweight division, but Joseph Parker, the much younger, the sort of slicker fighter, he would be expected by a lot of fans to actually come through and win this and advance on to a top 10 type of fight. Derek Chisora is by no means a mug. He will be coming to fight. He will be coming to win because he will know that if he can go into this fight with Joseph Parker, get a win either by decision or knockout or whatever, that really does bring him in for a big payday against one of the top 10. He may not get a title shot, but he could be in for a big money fight. And at this point in his career, clipping the ticket for whatever he can get in terms of a big payday, well, actually, it's all gravy for Derek Chisora now, because there have been points where I think people thought maybe he should retire. I mean, after he lost to Dillian Whyte the second time, after he brutally knocked out in the 11th round of that fight just, 7 or 8 months ago, I think a lot of people were thinking, yeah, he's had a good career, maybe it's time that he hung it up. But with another decent win over Artur Spilka, and if he could get through Joseph Parker, which would be quite a, no mean feat, then obviously he would be onto a big and meaningful fight, which would pay him a lot of money. And for Parker, the same thing. So it's all there to gain for both of them. And I do think that there is scope for this to be a very good fight in terms of the styles meshing well. I think Parker will fancy, his speed and skills over Chisora. And I think we'll see some back foot movement from Parker. I think he'll let Derek Chisora pressure him early on. But it could be a fight that really does erupt at times in terms of good trading. And Parker probably will back his chin. Derek Chisora, he's also relatively durable, and he won't mind if Parker is pressuring him, working up close, because some of that is right into his wheelhouse. Joseph Parker, not necessarily the best inside fighter. So, yeah, we did see some of that. It looked like he was trying to implement a bit more of that against Alex Leopai. He doesn't really, he's more from, mid-range or from the outside sort of circling. But he has obviously been working on some of his inside fighting, but I don't know how much he wants to sort of get in there with Derek Chisora and mix it up on the inside, because I think Chisora has shown in his career he's a pretty decent inside fighter, and he will catch you if you give him opportunities. But I like the fight if they can make this. In terms of what's coming up for the rest of the year, it's August now, and when you think about it, we've got the Povetkin and Hughie Fury fight. Nothing else major that's been really named at this point. So I hope they do make it, because there's not a lot else on the horizon at this point. But what do you make of it all? This is a good fight for me, and I do hope they make it. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.